Today, we will be talking on insight on qualitative research. So stay tuned as we navigate qualitative research together. So in this episode, we'll be talking about why do we have to engage in qualitative research? What are the philosophical orientations in qualitative research? What are the methods? What are the analyses? And then we conclude. So by the end of this video, we should be able to have your insights built and enhance your understanding of the qualitative research and analysis. So, what does qualitative research do? Qualitative research seeks to understand the underlying motivation, mark the word motivations, attitude, and behavior of individuals. So, qualitative research also delves deep into human experience, and it aims to capture the essence of social phenomenon within their natural contexts. Qualitative research can be in form of interview, or qualitative data rather can be in form of an interview transcript, could be in form of documents, it could also be in form of an open-ended surveys. It can also be in form of videos or images, just like we have on the screen. Some people think that qualitative research is probably easier than quantitative, right? But none is easier anyway. Both of them complement each other. It depends on your research topic. It depends on the kind of information you want to gather from participants or the kind of information you want to gather from the field. And with qualitative analysis and research, qualitative research is not that easy, but it is doable. So we do qualitative research, like I've said, to explain or explore intricate details. We also do qualitative research to describe social phenomenon comprehensively. We also do qualitative research to gain an understanding of the context in which a phenomena occur. It is a powerful tool for generating hypotheses of further research. Qualitative research, of course, helps to inform policy decisions. It helps to provide nuanced perspective on social issues and so on. So, what are the philosophical orientation in qualitative research? Qualitative research has to do with, abstract ideas and beliefs that inform our research. You talk about ontology, you talk about epistemology, you talk about the axiology, you talk about the methodology. So, under the ontology, ontology has to do with the nature of reality. In other words, what is the nature of reality? Okay, so in qualitative research, as a researcher, you should be able to embrace multiple realities. Remember that as a qualitative researcher, you are not going to the field with a preconceived ideas. Okay, that is what we call bias. You are not going into the field being biased. Whatever your participants tell you is what it is. And your views as a qualitative researcher should not be based on what you already know, even if you know that phenomenon. It should be based on interpretation that is socially constructed by your participant. And it's also on the premise that there is no universal truth. People see things from their context, from their perspective, from their experience, from their culture. Okay, so understanding the unique meaning individuals attach or attribute to their experiences is very important as a qualitative researcher. So here you could see why somebody else is seeing 9, the other person is seeing 6. So that is to show you that there is nothing like universal truth. And you can either see this glass of water as half full or half empty. That is your perspective and interpretation. Under the epistemology is asking, how is knowledge known? How is knowledge justified? In epistemology, you are co-creating knowledge, okay? Knowledge is seen as context dependent and socially situated, okay? So it is about how your participants perceive their context. It is also about how they choose to interpret the social situation around them. In axiology, you are talking about positionality. In other words, what is the role of value? What is the role of value? Every qualitative research is value-laden, and the researcher admits this, actively report their values and biases as well as value-laden nature of the information gathered from the field, regardless of your position. Of course, we are all humans, okay? And as humans, you have your perspective, you have your values. But regardless, as a qualitative researcher, you should be able to be reflexive. You should be able to know that these are your preconceptions before going into the field, and you must be transparent and you must be open so that your findings can be credible. In other words, make sure that the values you have about a particular phenomenon does not obscure the actual findings from the field and does not also shield or cover your participants' accounting of information, even if you witness that. Remember that you are going to ask people some question. There is a reason why you are going to the field. So you don't have to allow your value diffuse into the findings. So in methodology, it's talking about basically what is the process of the research, what is the language of the research. It could be inductive, emergent, reflexive, and you use various methods, including interviews, observations, and sampling in qualitative research is purposeful, like it's purposive, and you have to focus on individual that can actually give you the context or give you the contextually relevant information for which you are going to the field for. Always remember again that qualitative research can take the form of desk reviews in terms of case studies, in terms of records. It is also a people or population-based research, which could be interviews, focus groups, ethnography, observations, and so on. In qualitative research, you make use of small sampling, but not too small. Anyway, depending on the type you are using, it could be a non or it is a non-random sampling. Like I've said, there's no probability. Selection is purposive. And in order to validate your qualitative research, validation has to be on these tenets, the tenets of credibility, the tenets of conformability, the tenets of dependability, and the tenet of transferability. So when doing your qualitative analysis, there are different types of qualitative research analysis. It could be thematic analysis, content analysis, discourse analysis, narrative analysis, grounded analysis, and even the interpretive phenomenological analysis called the IPA or the heuristic analysis. Now, under the thematic analysis, what are you looking at? You are looking for patterns and similarities. In other words, what are the observable patterns and similarities? With qualitative research, you can review or analyze reviews, say, for instance, Honor Hotel, just like I've put here as an example, to find out what clients think about the place or even an institution. By reviewing the qualitative data, you will then identify the risk that crop up repeatedly within the data, and then, for example, what is it about this organization or this company? You could come up with things like it is a clean environment, good food, they are friendly, or they are good customer service. So thematic analysis is very useful for finding out people's experiences, people's views, people's opinion. So when you want to present data by themes, you use thematic analysis. And some of the steps, according to Brown and Clark, include familiarizing yourself with the data by reading the data repeatedly. You generate your codes, you organize your code, and combine similar codes. You search for themes, you review the themes, and you define or name the emergent theme theme where while producing your report. So assuming you are conducting a study on volunteers in a project, you could come up with themes such as active, willing, accountable, responsible, or motivated, examining the experiences of patients with prostate cancer. Some overarching research questions could be, what are the experiences of people with prostate cancer? What is the first thing you should do? All right, the first thing you should do actually is to get your transcript after you must have interviewed people or the patients, and make sure you also get your ethical approval. You listen to those interview transcripts by going back to the recordings to be sure you have transcribed well. That is data familiarization. You generate your initial code. For instance, you could asking question like, in terms of your health, do you think you view your health differently now compared to when you were, diagnosed? The participant might say, it is interesting. I guess I'm probably a little bit more health conscious. So we can develop a code here which can just be more health conscious. And then you could, probe further by saying, so have you changed anything about the way you live? And then the participants could say, oh, sort of. I try to keep a better eye on my weight. I have certainly lost weight, but I also take some hormone drugs, which help me. And my general practitioner is happy about the way I live. And I see him every 3 months and do my PSA periodically. So, from this transcripts, we can develop a code here that is actively manages weight, more conscious about weight, regular health checkup. So these are the kind of things that can emerge from the transcript. And thirdly, you generate your themes. These are the kind of codes that can emerge from this transcript. So from these codes, you now generate your theme. Example of themes are more relaxed about life, takes prescription regularly, views physical activities, regular checkup. And now look at, these are all the codes you've generated. But you now combine similar codes together. So take note of the colors I've used in delineating this code or in listing out this code. So everyone in green, regular checkups, more relaxed about life, takes prescription regularly, is pointing to current activity to maintain health. Under physical activities, the theme of physical activities comes with walking and golfing, views physical activities positively and physically acting. You see that it's referring to physical activities and so on. So the essence of thematic analysis is to be able to come up with themes that emerge from your codes. Now, the fourth step in thematic analysis is reviewing the potential themes. After you have come up with these themes, which are more conscious about health and all of that, you can still, go back again and check if there are other codes that can also emerge. In other words, the point I'm trying to make is that qualitative research, using thematic analysis is iterative. You keep going back and forth to make sure that you tease out all the necessary details from that transcript. So now that you have named your codes and you have come up with your themes, the next step is then to produce your analysis. Now, the next one I'm talking about is content analysis. Under content analysis is probably the most common and, straightforward qualitative data analysis method. So you are actually looking for patterns within the content. With content analysis, for instance, you can identify the frequency with which an idea is shared or is spoken out. In other words, you're looking for counts. You are looking for numbers. What are the emergent numbers that emerged from a particular transcript? Content analysis is used to determine the presence of certain themes or concepts within a given qualitative method. So if you want to analyze student needs, you could do this. So you've conducted your interviews, you've done your transcript, and then some of the codes that comes up are things on social interactions, financial issues, meet up, access to journals and books, swimming pool. Now you look at the number of times the social interactions emerge, you could see it's 201. And the financial issue came up with 45, meeting up came up 11 times, access to journals and book came up 101 times, and the need for swimming pool came up 12 times. So in other words, it means that you have grouped this thing into say academic needs and non-academic needs. You see now that student needs are mostly non-academic needs, which has to do with things to enhance social interaction, things to enhance financial issues, okay? And the academic ones is just access to journals and books, which are the only academic needs they identify. So in other words, content analysis helps you to evaluate patterns. Grounded analysis is aimed at creating new theory or theories using the data at hand. So grounded analysis, the data actually speak for itself. To do the grounded analysis, you conduct your interview, you analyze, you observe different hypotheses, that could come up. You might notice, for instance, that graduate students are more likely to read a post about qualitative methods if they are just starting on their dissertation journey or if they have an upcoming test and research method. Um, as you keep on analyzing, you come up with hypotheses that could now be tested further using quantitative research. So the essence of grounded analysis mostly is to create or come up with new theory or theories. Discourse analysis has to do with the analysis of language within its social context. When you are doing discourse analysis, you are analyzing language such as conversation, speech, and so on. It is the linguistic analysis of flow of, communication. For instance, you could analyze how a janitor speaks to a CEO or how politicians speak about terrorism. To truly understand this conversation or speeches, the culture and history of those involved in communication are also important. For instance, a janitor might speak more casually with the CEO or company that are emphasizing equality among workers. Similarly, a politician might speak more about terrorism if there was a recent terrorist attack in. So, in other words, in discourse analysis, you are analyzing how languages are used within a particular social context. In narrative analysis, you are examining how participants construct their stories. Narrative analysis involves personal life stories, it involves significant events and situations. It also identifies non-verbal expressions such as pauses, filler words, all non-verbal signs and gestures. So, in other words, the beautiful thing about qualitative research is that nothing is a waste. Even a filler words can also give you some insights, especially when a participant is not comfortable or maybe not comfortable when a participant well it could be not comfortable about a topic. It could be that there is something more or deeper about the issues being discussed at hand. So when you are doing qualitative research, take note of these filler words. It is very important, especially when you want to do your narrative analysis. So narrative analysis helps to explore whether and how something being said is important. For instance, the narrative of a prisoner trying to justify their crime could provide insight into their views of the world and the justice system. So when you are doing narrative analysis, you are looking at how participants construct their stories based on their personal experiences. Now, in IPA, interpretive phenomenological analysis, you are trying to understand the personal experiences of a subject or your participant. For instance, it could be a group of people concerning their major life events and experience or a situation. So IPA just goes beyond understanding what is being said. It goes deeper into interpreting what is being said. That is what we call the heuristic part of it. For instance, this event experience is a phenomena that makes up the phenomena. You're looking at a phenomena, you're looking at the experiences. IPA focuses on how humans views or experience the world. It is also a great choice if your research involves analyzing people's experiences or something that happened to them. So IPA is deeper than this other method because meanings are always attached, to IPA. So the type of method you want to use in your qualitative analysis depends on your aims and your objective. Don't forget that qualitative research can provide unique contributions to human-centered research. There are rigorous and widely accepted procedures for study design, sampling, and data collection and analysis. Of course, when you are doing your analysis, there are softwares you can use. You can use a latest software called the Q Insights. You can use your Atlas TI. You can use your NVivo and so on and so forth, depending on what you're more comfortable with. Remember that narrative analysis is about analyzing how stories are told. Discourse is about analyzing conversation, language interactions. Thematic analysis is about identifying themes and patterns. Content analysis has a blend because you are looking at numbers. How many times did this pattern come up? Grounded analysis is also about starting from the scratch with a specific question and using the data alone to build a theory in response to that question. And IPA, interpretive phenomenological analysis, has to do with understanding people's unique experience or a phenomenon. So, your target audience varies. It depends. It could be one-on-one, it could be group, it could be two or more people. Remember that in doing qualitative analysis, in doing qualitative research rather, you can use the in-depth interview, you can use the focus group discussions, you can use the key informants interviews, and so on and so forth. So, which of this method resonates with your current project? So if you are currently doing any work on qualitative analysis, which of the method are you going to use? Don't forget that it has to be based on your questions, your aims and objective, your experience, and your expertise. So thank you very much for listening. We hope to bring more information to you. We hope to bring more educating and informative topics that will aid your research and that will aid your scholarship. So till we come again, bye for now.